Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we finally get to take a look at the MSI 390X gaming 8GB of VRAM. Now, the 300 series has been something that we've been waiting for an awful long time. And there's been a lot of speculation, there's been lots of stuff going around in the press. My forums and the website have absolutely been buzzing about people waiting for the 390X. But the thing that I do need to say right now is the 390X isn't the top of the range card. The new Fury cord stuff are going to be above this series of cards. So all the 300 series cards are going to be based on models that you would have known before, a rebrand if you want to call them that. So the 390X is based on the 290X essentially, and then the two new cards, the Furies, are going to be coming in above this. One of the things I will say straight away though is the 390X, this one from MSI, is going to be coming in at £350, so £349 basically it's going to be at in the stores when it gets released. Now, what we do need to kind of say is the price in there is quite aggressive. It does put it right between the 980 and 970, so that we've got some good comparison points there to talk about with the competition. And a lot of you are probably going to be going on about, you know, yes, it is a 290X 8GB, and I did test the 290X 8GB when I first got wind of what was happening a few weeks back. So I've actually done some testing already to kind of cover these points. But what MSI have done, and it's the reason why I agreed to take on this review, is MSI haven't just changed the number on the box and used last gen's card. We have got a totally new PCB, it's much bigger, all the power circuitry has been redone, there's a new cooler on it. The cooler actually touches the MOSFETs on the card. There's a big brace to help keep it nice and straight. That brace is then incorporated in and goes on and touches and helps cool all of the memory. They've done a lot to this card. It's with the MSI card. Obviously, I've not seen any of the others yet, but with the MSI card specifically, they've not just gone, there's the old card in a new box. It's not like that at all. They've actually put a lot of time and effort in. And the price is actually pretty good as well, which is one of the reasons why when they offered it to me and I found out all these bits and bobs, I thought it would be worth a look. So what we will do is I will show you what I mean, because I need to take the card apart to show you what they've done and all the PCB stuff. And then we'll get down to the nitty gritty of the benchmarks and then do what we always do and finish up with a nice meaty conclusion. Okay, so our first look at the new Twin Frozer 5 cooler. MSI calling it the TF5 or the TFV. Now, so we do have 100mm fans on here, so they're nice big chunky fans, and the way they've managed to do that is if you have a look around this side, you can see the PCI bracket at the back. You can see that there is a stand off here. It does come out further. The PCB is larger. And this is the first chance that we get to kind of say that it's not just a new cooler, it is a new card as well, because they've made the PCB much bigger. So when we look down the side, we can see we've got this enormous brace all the way down here to help with rigidity, but it also, if we get the light right, you can see it goes down inside as well, and it goes all the way around the GPU and is cooling the memory as well. You can see here that we've got the memory pads at the bottom. Now this metal piece here is this. So it's quite a large chunk of metal there that we can see. So it's cooling all the memory and anything electrical up this end. But down this end, where the power delivery is, you can actually see that it's the actual cooler itself is in contact with the card. You can see a thermal pad there, see thermal pads here. So they're actively cooling the power delivery as well. Now, good things for this is that's going to be about longevity really. So it's going to help them keep that little bit cooler, which should help them last that little bit longer as well. Even if they weren't particularly going wrong before, keeping them that little bit cooler now is just going to be a massive positive on every angle. Obviously, something that they needed was a nice backplate. And it's so nice to see a card coming in at this price, 349 quid, coming with a nice backplate, nice gaming graphics on it. Only a tiny little MSI logo, so it's kind of subtle. But I really do like these kind of dimples on the back. That does really work. But obviously that all adds to the rigidity as well. So we can see quite clearly cooler touching the PCB. We can also see quite clearly this brace is a hell of a lot more than a brace because it's cooling the memory as well. And we've still got that massive cooler, which if you can see, there's a huge GPU plate on the bottom. You can see my finger reflection. It's a massive GPU plate on this. Like I said, it's not just changing the number with MSI. It's a totally new PCB, a totally new cooler, and a totally new way of them cooling the components on the card as well. I'm actually very impressed with this because a lot of other manufacturers have just gone with a we'll just change the box kind of approach, and MSI have taken their 390X much more seriously, and basically that's the reason why I said I'd review it first. Okay, so we popped it all apart, and we haven't done this in such a long time, but this card really deserved it. Obviously we've got the back plate that we showed you before, but all of these screws actually link into the main cooler itself and go through the card, which obviously give it extra rigidity. The cooler itself, I mean, you can see this is the power delivery end. This little platform here is actually across the top of the chokes, but you can see all of the machining and the like, and there's the actual GPU end. Now we did notice, now we've done all of our testing at this point, we did notice that the card's been taken apart at some point, not by us, and the thermal paste wasn't very well done. Now I've already filmed the part with the temps in, so later on in the video you'll see a little thing pop up because we're going to do thermal tests again just to make sure, so keep your ear open for that. But you can see all of the heat pipes. Look, this doesn't feel like an MSI gaming card. This feels more like a lightning card than anything else. The amount of thought and effort that's gone into this is ridiculous. And then when we come around to here, now this is one of the reasons there's still a lot of thermal paste around here, but there wasn't much on the actual die itself, so that's why we're going to go and retest it. But this is the memory plate that I was talking to you about. We could actually pop it off, but it's just screwed in the back, and we didn't think that we really needed to. I thought it'd give a better effect with the fact that you can see it's pretty much covering everything there. And like I said, this feels more like a lightning card than just a normal MSI gaming card. They've put a lot of thought and effort into this, and it's been said in the office that there's nothing half-arsed about this at all. This is a lot of arse has gone into trying to make this perfect. So I think MSI have put an awful lot of effort into trying to make sure that their 390X is best and the best that they possibly could have made it. Okay, so a quick strange add-in right at the end of I've finished all my testing, I've done everything, so all this video is being filmed all over the place. So the card is now back in the box, but we're going to talk about temperatures, because when I did my initial testing, I always test the card as it arrives with the temperatures, so that people can't say we haven't broken any like thermal paste seals or anything like that, because there were times when they'd say if you took the cooler off it'd perform worse afterwards. I think they expected idiots to put the thermal paste back on. Well, right at the end of the video I want to take the card apart, which you've already seen. So I took the card apart, but I noticed there was a break in what I would call the warranty sticker on the on one of the screws. And they do that so that you can't take it all apart. But that told me that it had been somewhere else. And when I took it apart, there was next to no thermal paste on the card itself. So I asked MSI, and it had been to another media first. So essentially what they'd done is they'd taken it apart for pictures and they just put it straight back together again. They hadn't really thermal pasted it up. I don't think that they put any aftermarket paste or anything like that on. So essentially what I did is noticing this and then thinking about how good the cooler looks and how well it was all put together. It should have done a lot better. I put some MX4 thermal paste on it, put it back together, put it back in the rig and tested it again. Now, bearing in mind when I tested it before at 22 degrees, so 21, 22 degrees, I was getting about 85 degrees. With it put back together this time and running in a room where it was 24.7 degrees, the card then was running at 72 degrees. So we took like 12 degrees off. So it's not a fault of the card. It wasn't put together badly. It'd been somewhere else first, and they just hadn't done the thermal paste properly. So that's just why there is the little check in between. But it does confirm to me. Now, I did want to add this in because later on in the video, in the conclusion, because I've already filmed that and I'm not going to do it again, you are going to hear me saying to you about fan profiles and, you know, really hot countries and stuff like that. I'd ignore that. When you've seen the way that this cooler is, it's amazing. So it's just one of those ones where it was a weird glitch. It's got caught up in our testing. We're all proper short of time. It's now 9 o'clock on the day before the NDA. The NDA is tomorrow afternoon at 1 PM. So I'm just nailing this in right at the end. The card is actually now back in the box as well. And it's due to go off to another media tomorrow. But don't worry about the other media. We've got some decent thermal pastes on it now and she's all good to go. So yeah, weird little add-in, but this is part and parcel of working on short deadlines. But long and story short is 72 degrees, fully auto fans, didn't change the fans or anything like that, in a very warm room. We're talking about a 290X. So that just goes to show you just how good MSI have managed to get the cooler on this. And to be honest with you, the cooler does look more like a lightning cooler than it does a gaming cooler. This new Twin Frozer 5 is absolutely epic. And I'm finally glad that I've got to the reason why, because I did think at the time I thought it should have been lower, and at least we now know why that was. So this is the end of this bit, and now you're going to skip into the rest of the review, which I filmed ages ago. The other really, really weird, strange thing for an AMD card is this will actually go utterly passive at stock or low loads. So the fans will stop spinning completely. When you first turn it on, they spin up for a bit, then they'll shut down. So when you're on your Windows desktop and stuff like that, they won't actually spin at all, which is something, again, for an AMD card, is something that I'm not particularly used to. And if I hadn't have had like so many of the other teams cards coming through here with passive fan modes, a lot of people can get caught off guard with it. Luckily, when it comes out the box, you do get a little sticker on the top of it that tells you not to freak out if it does stop spinning. Right, next, games. We're going to bang in with Tomb Raider, because Tomb Raider, let's face it, it's an AMD game. And the AMD cards generally do favour it quite well. And what we can see here is it's pretty much midships. But, and this is the but, if you look, 390X, look just slightly below, you've actually got a 980 below it in Tomb Raider. And if you go below that again, you've got the 290X Lightning. We've got standard 980s, 780 Ti down there as well. So the fact it is in the middle of that graph is pretty damn big achievement. I mean, when we look above it, you're looking at things like heavily overclocked 780 Tis and stock overclocked 980s. So the fact that it is in that middle there is actually quite a good calling card for the 980 for the 390X gaming. When we move on again, we can get to GTA 5. GTA 5, everyone knows that this is a bit of a killer. We've now settled with GTA 5 that we're not turning the AA up. So we've left that on its own, but we turned pretty much all the other settings up to max. But we've not touched the AA because that is literally when it cripples the cards with less VRAM. Now you may think it's an 8 gig card. We need to turn it up, but you need to also remember that we need to be able to do these tests with a whole range of cards. So that if you are, for argument's sake, running a 4K monitor and you want to know what it is to turn the AA up, then it's just something that you're going to have to take into account, that we can't test everything because we need to put this on a wide range of results and cards. But still, you can see here, and this is something that is kind of interesting that we've got the 290X matrix above it, but then we've got the XFX 290X 8GB at the bottom of the graph, but it's still above the 980 Ti, which again, it's above the 980 Ti. It's quite a big statement. Now, one thing I can say is that there was an immense amount of driver issues when we first got the 390X. You would think that because it's technically the 290X that it would run really easily. Well, it didn't. So we've not been able to bang any of the beta drivers on that would favour this card even more above the 290X matrix. And I think that, and it's an AMD thing, it's not an MSI thing. I think once there's a couple of driver revisions out to fix all these little glitchy problems, that we're not going to get any problems, and I think this will probably leap up again. But still, again, one thing that we do need to say is, like I said, the 980 Ti stock there is below the 390X. When we move on to some 4K gaming, we've got a whole list of games here, and then down the bottom we've got the 980 Ti, and then the 390X. Now you might wonder why there's not more cards in there. We've not done a massive amount of cards with our 4K screen. We have done more than this, but this was just to simplify it a little bit more, because otherwise it does get a little bit bonkers mental. So essentially, when you look there, it is in good favour. There's some places where it pulls in front of the 980, there's some places where it's behind. The reason why I did this graph is not to make the NVIDIA cards look better. It's more of the fact to show you that how close this can be to that 980, and sometimes it can pull in front as well. The other thing that I really want to show you is the 3D Mark Firestrike Ultimate result. It's obviously a benchmark, and yes, in this result it is quite down near the bottom, but we need to remember this is a 4K test and it's only been added to the package recently. They kind of nailed it on a little bit later on, and these are all the cards that we've tested with it of late. But my real point here is to kind of show you that just above the MSI is the MSI 980 Gaming. So we're looking at the 980 card there. Now, NVIDIA cards do generally benchmark better than the AMD cards, but this was really to show you how narrow of a gap that there really is. But also, because the MSI card comes pre-overclocked and all that kind of stuff, is significantly better than the XFX 390X, which was essentially just a stock card. Yes, it had a very good cooler, but there was no overclocks or anything like that. It was almost like a reference card with a posh cooler on it. So the MSI did manage to pull in front of that by quite a margin, really. When you have a look at it, it's nearly 300 points. It's kind of that the 390X kind of sits between the 980 Gaming and then the 290X 8GB from XFX. Right then, so conclusion time. When I first tested this, which was a few days ago, one of the things that we were talking about with it was I personally thought that it was all going to come down to price. And I have to say that when the £349 come in, I was actually quite happy, because it meant that I could say some really nice things about it. Because you can pick up, and I have to mention the names, but you can pick up a 980 now for around the £400 mark. Mostly above that £400 mark, but you can still pick them up. Now you can see in the game results that it is trading blows with that 980, which is quite a positive thing as well. So it's going to be trading blows with that 980 for less money, and you know, some games it favours better, some games it doesn't. That's just the way it's always going to work. So if you can get the same sort of performance for less money, then you're on to a good one. Now we do need to remember that the 290X was always a little bit of a warm cookie. And it's not going to change now. MSI have done a lot of work though on that PCB, on the cooling and stuff. And the best way I can put it is with that is if you want to turn the fan temperatures up, then you're going to, the fan speeds up, sorry, you're going to get lower temperatures. But by the fact that they've got the like active cooling on the MOSFETs and the power delivery and stuff now, so the cooler is actually touching those. They're going to last longer because, yeah, they would have been really warm before, but now they've got a bit more cooling on them, so that's all going to help. Same with the memory, nice big brace along the back as well, and that all keeps all the card nice and straight. The back plate looks lovely. So MSI have done a lot of work to try and make sure that if you do buy this, it's going to last. Now that's not because they wouldn't have done before, but it's more the fact that, you know, if you can make something more durable and start thinking long term and stuff, then it's never going to be a bad thing, is it? You'd rather know that it was built better than buy something that was a little bit cheaper and is a bit, you know, a little bit iffy. That's not to say that their last card was a bad card. It's more that they've just spent a lot more time trying to make sure this one is a better one. The back plate, they've all needed it for such a long time, so it was such a lovely thing to be able to look into the case like that and see a nice back plate on the back. The cooler all works nice, you've got the little light on it, it's all good. So for 350 quid, I think it is a very aggressively priced, great little card. Yes, you're going to need to debate about those heats, the heat. Your power supply wise as well. I mean, with our system, with the power draw, we were looking at over 500 watts. That's not the card, that's the entire system. So if you're going to be buying a power supply and you're thinking about getting one of these cards, I would personally be saying to you about 650 watts. If you're, you know, maybe with a bit of overclocking and fans and stuff, and you should be fine, and the power supply shouldn't scream too hard because it's working too hard. Just make sure that you get yourself a decent branded one. Don't go cheaping out and buying some 40 quid thing, because that's totally irrelevant. Your power supply is the heart of your PC. It's worth investing in. It's also worth mentioning as well that if your power supply does go pop, it can kill everything in your system and you haven't got a leg to stand on. So get yourself a good quality 650 watt power supply as a minimum for one of these, and you should be absolutely golden. So props to MSI for not just rebadging their old card and spending so much time, which has been blatant, that you can see that they have tried to make everything right, but also at the same time, because they've not just done all that, it's still quiet, it still performs really well, and by quiet I mean it was pretty much inaudible. So it's a cracking little card, and I can happily say that it's the best 290 that we've ever managed to get our hands on, and that was even with the fact, and this is another point to point out, we weren't able to use the beta drivers just yet, and we had to use the drivers off the CD. So if you do buy this, another point from TTL is get on the AMD website and download the very latest drivers that you can, and it will run even better than mine did, depending on, don't forget I'm using a 2011 system, so allow for some CPU squidge in there, but it will run much better than the driver CD one anyway. So I'm not going to rabble on anymore. 390X might not have been what you were expecting, but as far as they are compared to the 290X, this is an absolute cracker, which is the only reason why I said I'd do it in the first place. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan. Oh, I never said. Do you know, I never said once. I'm going to have to make it pop up easier, and you can all laugh at me when I got to the end and then finally remembered that I didn't say that we were going to give it the OC 3D Gold Award. Yay! Give the boy a pat on the back. Anyway, for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Gold Award winning MSI 390X 8GB card out.